Hello friends, please like and subscribe to the channel and enjoy the stories. It started, as many modern romances do, with a chance encounter in the most unexpected of places, a cozy subreddit dedicated to amateur stargazing. Eleanor, 26, was scrolling aimlessly one night, hoping to find tips for setting up her telescope. She had recently moved to a small, quiet town in Oregon, far from the bright city lights, seeking solace after a painful breakup. Stargazing became her escape, a way to remind herself of the vastness of the universe and her small place within it. She came across a post by NovaLover99, a user asking for advice on capturing constellations with a DSLR camera. The username caught her attention, as did the thoughtful replies he was receiving. Intrigued, she clicked on his profile. His posts revealed a passion for astrophotography and a knack for poetic musings about the cosmos. One post read, "The stars don't judge the darkness, they simply illuminate it, offering a reminder that beauty often emerges from the void." Something about those words resonated with her. She couldn't resist commenting. And sometimes, the void isn't empty. It's full of potential waiting for light to reveal it. The first spark. The reply came quickly. "That's beautifully said. Are you a poet or a fellow stargazer?" Thus began a conversation that spanned hours. They exchanged stories about their favorite constellations, their awe at meteor showers, and the strange comfort of sitting under a sky that had seen millennia pass. NovaLover99 introduced himself as Liam, a 28-year-old freelance graphic designer from Colorado. Like Eleanor, he'd found solace in the stars during tough times. For him, it was a way to cope with the loss of his mother, who had introduced him to stargazing as a child. What began as a casual exchange turned into a nightly ritual. They would log on after sundown, sharing photos of their skies and comparing notes on celestial phenomena. Eleanor began to look forward to these interactions more than she cared to admit. From screens to reality. After weeks of messages and voice calls, Liam surprised Eleanor by proposing a virtual stargazing session. Using a live streaming setup, he invited her to join him at his favorite mountain spot in Colorado. Through his lens, she could see a crystal-clear view of the Milky Way, far better than her modest telescope could capture. As they marveled at the stars together, Eleanor realized she had been laughing more than she had in months. Liam's easygoing humor and genuine enthusiasm for life made her feel alive again. "You know," Liam said, his voice soft over the stream, "I never thought I'd meet someone who could match my wonder for the universe. It's like the stars aligned for us." Her cheeks flushed. For the first time in a long while, the idea of love didn't seem so distant. A leap of faith. Months passed, and their connection deepened. Despite living hundreds of miles apart, they began to dream of meeting in person. But Eleanor was hesitant. What if their chemistry didn't translate into real life? Liam, ever the optimist, encouraged her to take a leap of faith. If we can navigate the infinite void of space together, what's a few miles on Earth? Finally, Eleanor booked a flight to Colorado. She arrived at the small airport with her heart racing, clutching her carry-on bag like a lifeline. Liam was waiting at the arrivals gate, holding a sign that read, "Astronomical meeting ahead." Seeing him in person for the first time, Eleanor felt a strange mix of familiarity and nervous excitement. He greeted her with a warm smile and a slightly awkward hug, both of them laughing at their shared awkwardness. Under the same sky. That evening, Liam took Eleanor to the very spot where he'd live-streamed their first virtual stargazing session. The mountain air was crisp, and the sky was clearer than Eleanor had ever seen. As they lay side by side on a blanket, pointing out constellations and sharing childhood memories, the moment felt almost surreal. When a shooting star streaked across the sky, Liam turned to Eleanor. "Do you believe in making wishes?" he asked. She smiled. "I think mine might have already come true." Liam reached for her hand, his fingers lacing through hers. "You've made the universe feel a little less vast," he said softly. Eleanor and Liam's story didn't end there. What began as a chance online encounter blossomed into a lifelong partnership. They split their time between Oregon and Colorado, eventually settling in a small cabin with a perfect view of the night sky. Together, they started a blog documenting their stargazing adventures, inspiring others to find beauty and connection in the cosmos. Their love story became a testament to the idea that sometimes the stars truly do align. It started in the awful roommates subreddit, of all places. Josh, 27, had just posted a rant about his nightmare of a roommate, a guy who insisted on keeping pet lizards in the refrigerator to slow their metabolism, among other absurdities. The post, titled Roommate Chronicles The Reptile Saga, went semi-viral, attracting thousands of upvotes and a flurry of comments. Among the sea of replies, one stood out. A user named Luna Wanders wrote, "If the lizards start demanding snacks, you might want to consult a wizard instead of a landlord. By the way, I hope you're okay. It sounds awful." Something about her humor caught Josh's attention. He replied, "Thanks for the laugh. I needed that. If my roommate turns into a wizard, I'll send you an owl." From comments to conversations. What began as a lighthearted exchange turned into a thread of back-and-forth banter. They moved their conversation to private messages, then to Reddit chat, and eventually to long, late-night Discord calls. Josh learned that Luna Wanders was actually Emily, a 25-year-old freelance travel writer who'd just moved to his city. She'd left her small town in Maine to chase her dream of writing full-time, but the reality of starting over in a new place was lonelier than she'd anticipated. Emily, in turn, learned that Josh was a graphic designer who'd moved to the city 2 years prior. He'd fallen into a routine that was comfortable but uninspiring, filled with work, Netflix binges, and the occasional misadventure with his eccentric roommate. The first meeting. After weeks of chatting, Emily suggested they meet in person. She'd found a cozy, hole-in-the-wall coffee shop that served the best chai lattes in the city. Nervous but excited, Josh agreed. When the day came, Josh arrived early, his heart pounding. He'd spent way too much time debating whether to wear his leather jacket or a more casual hoodie. He chose the jacket, hoping it would make him look effortlessly cool, though he felt anything but. Emily walked in a few minutes later, her auburn hair tied up in a messy bun, wearing a mustard-yellow scarf that seemed to light up the room. Josh stood awkwardly, raising a hand in a small wave. She smiled, a wide, genuine smile that immediately put him at ease. They spent hours at that coffee shop, laughing over stories of bad dates, strange Reddit threads, and the quirks of city life. By the time they parted ways, both knew this was more than a casual friendship, building something real. Over the next few months, their connection deepened. They explored the city together, from its bustling markets to hidden parks. Emily introduced Josh to the world of impromptu road trips, while Josh taught Emily how to cook, though their first attempt at making lasagna ended in hilarious disaster when they forgot to pre-cook the noodles. Despite their growing feelings, both carried scars from past relationships. Josh hesitated to open up about his fear of being left behind, a wound from his ex who'd abruptly moved across the country for a job without considering him. Emily, on the other hand, struggled with self-doubt, wondering if she was truly enough for someone as steady and kind as Josh. Their first fight happened on a rainy night after Emily canceled plans last minute, overwhelmed by a deadline she hadn't mentioned. Josh, feeling shut out, confronted her, and the tension simmered until Emily finally blurted out, "I just don't want to let you down." Josh took her hands gently. "You're not letting me down, but I need you to trust me enough to share what's on your mind. We're in this together." It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. A night under the stars. On their 6-month anniversary, Josh surprised Emily with a camping trip to a nearby national park. They pitched their tent near a clear, starlit lake, far from the noise of the city. As they sat by the campfire, Emily leaned her head on Josh's shoulder. "I've been thinking," she said softly, "if someone told me a year ago that I'd meet my favorite person on Reddit, I'd have laughed them out of the room." Josh chuckled. Reddit, bringing people together, one lizard story at a time. Emily laughed, but her tone grew serious. "I mean it, though. You've changed how I see everything. Myself, the city, even the stars. You make life feel lighter." Josh turned to face her, his eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. "You make me feel like I'm part of something bigger. Like the everyday stuff matters because I get to share it with you." Under the canopy of stars, they shared their first "I love you," the words as natural and certain as the constellations above. Epilogue. Years later, Josh and Emily would share their story on Reddit, posting in r/relationships with the title, "We met in the comments section. Now we're engaged." The post detailed their journey, from the infamous lizard roommate to the stargazing confession. It quickly went viral, with thousands of upvotes and comments from people rooting for them. As they read through the replies together, Emily joked, "We should thank your roommate someday." Josh grinned, "Maybe we'll name our first pet after one of his lizards. How do you feel about a cat named Spike?" Emily laughed, leaning into Josh's side. "As long as you're by my side, I'm okay with anything." On a chilly November evening, Elena, a 29-year-old aspiring author, was browsing Ars writing prompts. She'd recently moved to Boston to focus on her first novel and spent most of her time in a tiny studio apartment surrounded by half-filled notebooks and stacks of library books. Writing was her world, but loneliness crept in during quiet moments. Scrolling through prompts, one caught her eye. "Write a story where two people fall in love because of a typo." Elena loved quirky, heartfelt ideas like this. Feeling inspired, she typed up a whimsical short story about two linguists who accidentally fell for each other through a series of misinterpreted messages. She hit post, but not before accidentally typing linguine instead of linguists in the title. A message that changed everything. The typo caught the attention of Nathan, a 32-year-old chef and self-proclaimed foodie who frequented r/writing prompts for creative inspiration. He couldn't resist commenting, "I didn't know pasta could fall in love, but now I need to see how this plays out. Also, what's your take on marinara versus Alfredo?" Elena laughed when she saw the comment and replied, "Well, I imagine linguine would have strong feelings about Alfredo, but marinara is a safer bet. It's less possessive." What followed was an unexpectedly hilarious thread of puns and witty banter about pasta, romance, and food metaphors. Other users chimed in, but Nathan and Elena's exchanges stood out, sparking a mini fan club within the comments. Nathan eventually sent Elena a private message. "Your sense of humor is too good to leave in a public thread. If you're open to it, I'd love to hear more about your writing process, or your stance on pesto." From DMs to dinner plans. What started as casual messages quickly evolved into nightly chats. Elena learned that Nathan owned a small Italian restaurant in Cambridge, which explained his culinary enthusiasm. He'd grown up cooking with his grandmother and had dreamed of opening his own place since he was a teenager. Nathan, in turn, discovered that Elena was witty, sharp, and passionate about storytelling. She told him about her struggles with writer's block and how she often felt like an imposter in the literary world. "You're like a real-life pasta muse," she joked one night. "Without you, I'd probably still be staring at a blank page." One evening, after weeks of talking, Nathan took a leap of faith. "This might sound crazy, but I'd love to meet you in person. How about dinner at my restaurant? It'll be casual. Just two people bonding over linguine." Elena hesitated at first. Meeting someone from the internet felt risky, even if she already felt like she knew him. But something about Nathan's warmth and humor made her say yes. The first meeting. The night of their dinner, Elena arrived early, her nerves bundled up tightly under her winter coat. The restaurant, a cozy place called Nana's Table, was warm and inviting, with the aroma of garlic and fresh bread wafting through the air. Nathan spotted her immediately and waved, his grin as disarming in person as it had been in their chats. He was taller than she'd expected, with dark, curly hair and an apron dusted with flour. They spent hours talking, their conversation flowing as effortlessly as their messages. Nathan prepared a special dish inspired by their first conversation. Linguine with a light marinara sauce and a side of garlic bread. "Linguine definitely approves," Elena said with a laugh as she twirled a forkful. By the end of the night, they both knew something special had begun. Over the next few months, Nathan and Elena became inseparable. They explored Boston together, from its bustling markets to quiet bookshops where Nathan would encourage Elena to share snippets of her novel in progress. In return, she became his most devoted taste tester, offering honest, and sometimes overly detailed, feedback on his new recipes. But their relationship wasn't without challenges. Nathan's restaurant demanded long hours, leaving him exhausted and often feeling guilty for not spending enough time with Elena. Meanwhile, Elena struggled to juggle her growing feelings for Nathan with her fear of failure in her writing career. One night, after a particularly stressful day, they argued. Nathan had canceled their plans last minute due to a kitchen mishap, and Elena, already feeling neglected, lashed out. "You always put the restaurant first," she said, her voice trembling. "And you think writing is any less demanding?" Nathan shot back. They spent the evening apart, both wondering if their worlds were too different to coexist. A turning point. The next morning, Nathan showed up at Elena's door with a steaming container of her favorite pasta and an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry," he said. "You're right. I do put the restaurant first sometimes, but you're important to me, and I want to make this work." Elena softened, realizing she'd been projecting her own insecurities onto him. "I'm sorry, too. I know how much the restaurant means to you. I don't want to lose what we have." They spent the day talking, reaffirming their commitment to finding balance. A recipe for forever. 2 years later, Nathan and Elena's worlds merged in the most beautiful way. They co-wrote a cookbook called Love and Linguine, blending Nathan's recipes with Elena's heartfelt storytelling. The book was a surprise hit, leading to book tours, cooking demos, and a new sense of shared purpose. On the night of their book launch, Nathan proposed in the most Nathan way possible, by serving Elena a plate of linguine with "Will you marry me?" written in marinara sauce on the side. Laughing and crying, Elena said yes. Years later, they shared their story on r/writing prompts, under the title, "A Typo Brought Us Together." Now we're married, with 2 kids and a thriving pasta empire. The post received thousands of upvotes and comments from people inspired by their journey. As Elena closed her laptop, she turned to Nathan, who was stirring a pot of sauce in their kitchen. "Can you believe it all started because I misspelled linguists?" Nathan grinned. "Best typo ever." And in that cozy kitchen, filled with laughter and the smell of simmering marinara, they knew they'd found their forever. Claire, 26, a graphic designer in Chicago, had been scrolling mindlessly through Reddit during her lunch break. She'd been in a rut, working endless hours on uninspiring projects, with no time for her personal art or social life. The question caught her attention, and before she could overthink it, she typed out her story. "A few years ago, I was having the worst day of my life. Missed my train, spilled coffee all over my white shirt, and forgot my umbrella in the middle of a downpour. As I stood there, soaked and miserable, a stranger offered me his umbrella and ran off into the rain before I could even thank him. I still think about it sometimes, wondering who he was." The post didn't go viral, but it received enough attention to spark heartfelt replies. Among them was a comment from a user named Pixel Wanderer. "Crazy coincidence. I did the exact same thing for someone a few years back. Was it in downtown Chicago by any chance?" Claire stared at the comment, her heart racing. Could it really be him? She replied, asking for more details, and soon enough, they were exchanging messages. The stranger has a name. Pixel Wanderer turned out to be Ian, 28, a software developer who lived in the suburbs of Chicago. He explained how he'd seen a woman standing miserably in the rain that day and had acted on impulse. "I wasn't even supposed to be there," he wrote. "I missed my stop on the train and had to backtrack, but I remember thinking you looked like you needed the umbrella more than I did." The realization that Ian was that stranger hit Claire like a lightning bolt. Overwhelmed by the serendipity of it all, she suggested they meet for coffee. The first meeting. They agreed to meet at a cozy cafe near the train station where their paths had first crossed. Claire arrived early, nervously fiddling with her phone, wondering if this whole thing was a mistake. When Ian walked in, her nerves melted away. He was tall, with a kind face and an easy smile that made her feel instantly at ease. He spotted her, waved awkwardly, and approached. "I guess I should have brought another umbrella," he joked as he sat down. They spent hours talking, piecing together the day they had unknowingly shared, and learning about each other's lives since then. Ian confessed he almost didn't comment on her Reddit post, thinking it would seem weird. "Well, I'm glad you did," Claire said, smiling. From strangers to something more. Over the next few weeks, Claire and Ian's connection deepened. They started texting constantly, sharing everything from embarrassing childhood stories to their dreams for the future. Ian told Claire about his love for hiking and photography, and Claire shared her passion for painting and her struggle to find time for it. They began meeting up regularly, exploring the city together, visiting museums, trying out hole-in-the-wall restaurants, and even recreating their rainy day encounter for a laugh. One evening, while sitting on a park bench overlooking the city skyline, Ian turned to Claire. "You know, I wasn't just being nice that day with the umbrella. There was something about you. I couldn't just walk by." Claire felt her cheeks flush. "You saved me from one of the worst days of my life. I guess I owe you forever." "Forever sounds good to me," Ian said, his voice soft. Challenges along the way. Their relationship wasn't without its bumps. Claire's demanding work schedule often left her exhausted, and Ian's job occasionally required him to travel for weeks at a time. There were moments when the distance and stress made them question if they could make it work. One particularly rough patch came when Ian was offered a promotion that would require him to move to another city. They sat in silence over dinner one night, both afraid to voice their fears. Finally, Ian broke the tension. "I don't want to take it if it means losing you." Claire shook her head. "I don't want to hold you back, but I don't want us to end either." After hours of talking, they decided to stay in Chicago and work on building their lives together. A love written in the stars. A year into their relationship, Ian surprised Claire with a weekend getaway to a small cabin in the woods. He'd remembered her saying she missed painting and had secretly arranged for a makeshift art studio overlooking a lake. As Claire unpacked the painting supplies Ian had brought, she turned to see him holding a small box. "I've been thinking," Ian said, his voice steady but his hands trembling. "Life is unpredictable. If I hadn't missed my stop that day, I wouldn't have met you. But now that I have, I don't want to imagine life without you." He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver ring. "Will you marry me?" Claire's eyes filled with tears as she nodded. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." 2 years later, Ian and Claire shared their story on r/AskReddit, responding to a similar question about acts of kindness. Their post, titled "How a Stranger with an Umbrella Became My Husband," went viral, garnering thousands of upvotes and comments. They ended the post with a photo from their wedding day, Ian holding a bright yellow umbrella with Claire laughing beside him. Their story became a beacon of hope for Redditors everywhere, proving that even the smallest acts of kindness can change lives forever. It all started when I least expected it. I was scrolling through Reddit one evening, distracted and lost in the endless stream of posts, when I saw a post in r/relationships that caught my attention. The title was simple: "I feel like I'm destined to be alone forever." The post was a cry for help from someone, and it resonated with me immediately. The user, a girl named Emily, was talking about how she had tried everything: dating apps, blind dates, even just hoping for the best, but had never felt a deep connection with anyone. She was tired of being disappointed and, like me, started to believe that maybe love just wasn't in the cards for her. I remember reading the post and thinking, this could be me writing this. I feel the same way. I've always been an introvert, never really good at connecting with people, especially romantically. My friends had always joked about me being a hopeless romantic, but deep down, I knew they were right. I longed for the kind of connection that Emily was describing. A love where two people truly get each other. I don't know what prompted me to reply, but something about her words felt too familiar for me to ignore. So I did what I had never done before. I commented. I wrote a simple, supportive message. "I know exactly how you feel. I've been there, and honestly, I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to find the one. Maybe it's about being open to the idea that love can come from unexpected places." I didn't expect a response. Honestly, I just wanted to share my thoughts, to show some empathy. But Emily replied almost immediately. Her reply was long and heartfelt. She thanked me for my comment and said that she felt like I understood her. She was surprised because it was rare for someone to not offer a generic response like, "Don't worry, it'll happen." She appreciated the fact that I wasn't just trying to cheer her up, I was acknowledging her feelings. It felt like we connected instantly. We continued talking in the comments, and soon we were messaging privately. I'll admit, I felt a little nervous at first. I had never talked to a stranger this much, especially about something as personal as love and relationships. But Emily was different. She didn't judge me, didn't push for details I wasn't ready to share. She listened. It wasn't long before we were exchanging messages almost daily, talking about everything, our hopes, our dreams, our fears. It felt so natural, like we had known each other for years. We found ourselves talking for hours, getting lost in conversation about things that felt incredibly meaningful. A couple of weeks into our chats, Emily suggested we talk over the phone. I was terrified, but I didn't want to miss the chance to get to know her better. So I agreed. When she called, I could hear the nervousness in her voice too. But as soon as we started talking, it felt like we had already crossed that awkward stage. Her voice was warm and kind, and I immediately felt more at ease. We started to share even more personal things, from childhood memories to our biggest regrets. I learned that Emily had faced a lot of hardships growing up, just like I had. We both had stories that had shaped us into who we were, and there was something comforting about knowing we weren't alone in our experiences. One evening, Emily sent me a message saying she had been thinking about something for a while and wanted to share it with me. I was curious, but I was also a bit nervous about what it might be. She confessed that she had started developing feelings for me. My heart skipped a beat when I read that. I had never thought that this could turn into something more than just a friendship. I had always been afraid of putting myself out there, but the idea of her liking me back stirred something inside me. I had started caring for her more than I realized. I told her that I had been feeling the same way. That, in the few weeks we'd known each other, I'd grown attached to her kindness, her honesty, the way she made me feel understood. We both admitted that it felt like something special was forming between us, even though we hadn't met in person yet. After that conversation, we both agreed that we needed to meet, but we were both nervous. The idea of meeting someone you've only ever talked to online can feel overwhelming, but we both knew it was the next step. So, we made plans to meet at a local park on a Saturday afternoon, keeping it casual, just a walk, coffee, and talk. The day finally came, and I was a bundle of nerves. What if things were awkward? What if the chemistry we had online didn't translate into real life? I showed up at the park a little early, pacing around, checking my phone every few seconds. Finally, I saw her walking toward me. My heart raced. She was even more beautiful than I imagined. But it wasn't just her looks. It was her presence. The way she smiled when she saw me, the way her eyes lit up when she waved. I knew in that moment that I had made the right decision. We embraced like we had known each other forever, and everything just felt right. We spent the next few hours walking around the park, laughing, sharing stories, and getting to know each other even more. It felt like time stood still. I had never felt so comfortable with anyone so quickly. It wasn't just a date. It was a connection, a feeling that this was something worth exploring. From that day on, we continued to meet up, talking about our future, supporting each other through tough times, and building a relationship based on trust, understanding, and mutual respect. Every day, I fell more in love with her. A year later, we were still inseparable. Emily had become my best friend and my partner in every sense of the word. We were both amazed at how far we had come since that first Reddit post. We had been through so much together, and I was certain that I had found my person. I proposed to her on the same park bench where we had first met. Of course, she said yes. Today, we're happily engaged, planning our future together. Looking back, it feels like fate brought us together in the most unexpected of ways. If I hadn't decided to comment on that post, if Emily hadn't reached out, I would have never known the love of my life. So, to anyone out there who feels like love is never going to happen, sometimes it finds you when you're least expecting it. Keep your heart open, and don't be afraid to take chances. You never know what beautiful connections lie just around the corner. This Reddit-inspired story weaves themes of vulnerability, serendipity, and deep connection. It emphasizes how love can blossom from unexpected places and how taking small risks can lead to life-changing moments. It feels strange even writing this down, but I wanted to share our story in the hope that it might give someone out there a little bit of hope, or at the very least, make them believe that love can come from the most unexpected places. I never believed in love at first sight. Hell, I didn't even believe in love at all. I was always the type to think that relationships were built on time, patience, and common interests. I had been in a few relationships before, but none of them ever felt like the one. I used to tell myself that maybe I was just one of those people who wasn't destined to find someone special. Then I logged into Reddit one afternoon, and everything changed. It was just a regular day, and I had been browsing through r/relationships like I often did, reading other people's stories, trying to make sense of my own love life. Then I saw a post titled, "I don't know if I believe in love anymore," with the description, "I think I'm starting to lose faith in love. I've been single for years, and every relationship I've had has ended in heartbreak. Is there hope for me?" Something about that title hit me hard. I clicked on the post and started reading. The user's name was Cassandra, and her post was full of frustration and sadness. She talked about how every time she got close to someone, it ended in disappointment. She seemed to be questioning whether love was something she could ever truly have, and honestly, it sounded so familiar. I had been in that same place before, feeling like no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't find a connection that lasted. Without thinking, I typed out a reply. I wasn't trying to offer advice. There are always 100 people on Reddit who give, "Just wait, the right person will come along" advice. No, I just wanted to say that I understood how she felt. I shared my own story about how I, too, had been through a series of failed relationships and was beginning to wonder if love was really worth the pain. I didn't expect her to respond. I just felt like someone should hear her, really hear her. To my surprise, she responded. Her message was thoughtful and kind. She thanked me for understanding and shared more about her past relationships and her struggles with finding someone who truly clicked with her. We ended up talking about everything: our childhoods, our families, our biggest fears and dreams. It wasn't just about relationships anymore. We connected over everything, like two strangers who had known each other for years. Over the next few weeks, we continued talking on Reddit and through DMs. We talked about everything under the sun: books, movies, life goals, even silly things like what our ideal pizza toppings were. It felt like I had finally found someone who truly understood me, someone I could talk to about anything. But there was always this nagging feeling, a thought that lingered in the back of my mind. This connection is more than just friendship. One evening, after we'd been talking for a couple of months, I took a deep breath and sent a message that completely changed everything. I told her that I had developed feelings for her, feelings that went beyond just friendship. I didn't know what I expected, maybe a polite thank you for being honest, or worse, an awkward silence. But what I got was far from that. Her reply was immediate, and it stopped me in my tracks. She admitted that she had been feeling the same way. That she, too, had started to develop deeper feelings for me. And that, for the first time in a long while, she felt like there was someone who truly cared about her and understood her on a level that no one else ever had. The moment I read that message, everything inside me shifted. I had spent months getting to know this amazing woman, and now I knew she felt the same way. But there was still one thing we hadn't done: meet in person. We had been talking for so long that it felt surreal to think about actually meeting. We lived in different states, and neither of us had really thought about the logistics of seeing each other. But once we admitted our feelings, it was all we could think about. We made plans to meet halfway, an hour-and-a-half drive for both of us, to a quiet little cafe in a town that was neither of ours but felt like the perfect place for a first meeting. I was a mess leading up to that day, excited, nervous, hopeful. I couldn't stop thinking about the possibility that maybe this could turn into something real. What if we met in person and the chemistry didn't match? What if the spark we had online was just a fluke? The day arrived, and I showed up early, pacing outside the cafe, trying to calm my nerves. I kept telling myself that if nothing else, I was about to meet a new friend, a really good one, who had become so important to me over the past few months. But as soon as I saw her walking towards me, all my worries melted away. Cassandra was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Her eyes sparkled, her smile was warm and inviting, and there was this confidence about her that made me feel like I was in the presence of someone truly remarkable. She walked right up to me, and we didn't waste time on awkward small talk. We hugged, and it felt so right. We spent the next few hours talking like we had known each other forever. We laughed about our shared experiences, talked about our families, and even had deep, meaningful conversations about life. That day was the beginning of something I didn't expect to happen. Something that felt like it had been waiting to happen all along. After that first meeting, we continued to talk and visit each other as often as we could. Every time we saw each other, the connection grew stronger. We made each other laugh, supported each other through tough times, and shared our most vulnerable moments without fear of judgment. What started as a simple comment on Reddit blossomed into something truly beautiful. Fast forward to a year later. We're still together, and I can't imagine my life without her. We've traveled together, met each other's families, and grown in ways I never thought possible. It's not always easy, long-distance relationships are tough, but every challenge only strengthens our bond. We talk about our future and the life we want to build together. And I know, without a doubt, that Cassandra is the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. To anyone reading this, if you're struggling with loneliness or questioning if love is in the cards for you, please know that sometimes love comes when you least expect it. It might start with something as small as a comment on a Reddit post or a message from a stranger. But if you're open to it, love can find you in the most unexpected ways. This story emphasizes how sometimes love comes in small, unexpected ways, even through the anonymity of online spaces like Reddit. It's a reminder to be open to connection, no matter how unlikely it may seem. It all started about 2 years ago. I had just gone through a tough breakup, the kind that leaves you questioning everything about yourself and your ability to love. I had been with my ex for 3 years, and when it ended, I felt like I had lost a piece of myself. I spent weeks wallowing in self-pity, isolating myself from my friends and family. I didn't know what to do, so I turned to Reddit for some kind of distraction. I spent most of my time scrolling through various subreddits, mostly r/relationships and r/nostalgia, just reading other people's stories and comments. One day, as I was reading a post on r/relationships, I stumbled across a comment that made me pause. It was a simple message, but it resonated with me so deeply that I felt compelled to reply. The post was about a girl named Sophie who had just gone through a painful breakup as well. She was questioning if love even existed after all the heartache she had endured. The comment I read was from someone named Liam, who, like me, was offering support to Sophie. It was clear from his words that he had been through his own struggles and heartbreak, and he was speaking from a place of genuine empathy. I admired how kind and patient his response was. So without thinking much of it, I sent him a message. I didn't expect a reply. In fact, I wasn't even sure why I had messaged him in the first place. But within an hour, I got a response. Liam thanked me for reaching out and said that he was glad to see someone else understood how hard it could be to move on after a breakup. We exchanged a few messages back and forth, mostly about our individual struggles, and it was comforting to talk to someone who wasn't trying to offer cliched advice like, "You'll get over it," or "There are plenty of fish in the sea." Instead, Liam just listened and shared his own experiences. Our conversations became a regular thing, and after a few weeks of talking about everything from movies to music to our childhoods, Liam suggested that we talk on the phone. I was hesitant. After all, we had only known each other through Reddit, and the idea of talking to someone I had never met felt strange. But something about his voice in his messages made me feel like he was someone I could trust. So I agreed. When we finally spoke on the phone for the first time, it felt surreal. His voice was warm and friendly, and we slipped into a natural rhythm as if we had known each other for years. We talked about our families, our jobs, and our dreams. It wasn't awkward or forced, but easy and familiar. As the days turned into weeks, our conversations grew deeper. I found myself looking forward to hearing from him more and more. It wasn't long before I realized that I had started to develop feelings for Liam. One night, after a particularly long conversation about our favorite books, I finally confessed to him. I told him that I liked him, not just as a friend, but in a way that felt different. I had developed feelings for him, and I wasn't sure what to do about it. I wasn't even sure if he felt the same way. His response was immediate. He admitted that he had been feeling the same way, but he was nervous about the idea of developing feelings for someone he had never met in person. I understood his hesitation, but it didn't make me feel any less hopeful. We agreed that we should meet in person, even if it felt risky. We had already shared so much of our lives with each other, and now it felt like the natural next step. We decided to meet in a small coffee shop halfway between our cities. I was terrified. What if the chemistry didn't translate in person? What if we didn't feel the same way once we saw each other face to face? But as soon as I saw Liam walking towards me, all my fears melted away. He had the same warm, inviting smile that had made me feel so comfortable in our online conversations. And when he hugged me for the first time, everything felt right. It was like a missing piece had finally clicked into place. We spent hours talking over coffee, just like we had done over the phone, but this time in person. We laughed, shared more stories, and discovered even more common ground than we had through our messages. There were no awkward silences, no nervousness, just the feeling that we had known each other for a lifetime. From that day on, things moved quickly. We saw each other almost every weekend, and our connection deepened with each visit. We both opened up in ways that we hadn't with anyone else, and I could feel myself falling more and more in love with him every day. Liam had become more than just a friend or someone I confided in. He had become my confidant, my best friend, and eventually, my partner. A year into our relationship, Liam moved to my city. It wasn't easy. Moving for a relationship after having known each other for just a year seemed like a huge step, but we both felt like we couldn't be apart. Living together was an adjustment, but it was also a new chapter in our relationship. We learned to navigate the challenges of daily life, while continuing to nurture the bond that had started so unexpectedly. Fast forward to today. It's been nearly 2 years since we first started talking on Reddit, and I can't believe how far we've come. Liam is the love of my life. We're building a future together, planning our wedding, discussing our dreams of traveling the world, and even starting to think about starting a family. It still feels surreal that a simple message on Reddit led to all of this. But I've learned that sometimes love doesn't happen in the ways you expect. Sometimes it's a slow burn, and it begins with a message to a stranger in a forum. If there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's that love can find you when you least expect it. It doesn't matter if you've been hurt before, if you're skeptical about meeting someone new, or if you think love is something that's just out of reach. Sometimes it takes just one unexpected moment, one message, or one comment to change everything. So if you're reading this and wondering if it's possible to find love in an unexpected place, my answer is yes. Keep your heart open, and you never know who might be out there waiting to find you. This story highlights the unexpected way love can blossom, showing how deep connections can form through vulnerable, honest conversations, even in an online space like Reddit. It's a reminder that love can come when you least expect it, and often in the most unexpected places. It all started 2 years ago. I had just gone through a painful breakup, the kind that leaves you questioning everything, even your ability to love again. My ex and I had been together for 3 years, and we had built a life together that I thought would last. But it all came crashing down when we realized we wanted different things. I was heartbroken and lost, feeling like I would never be able to trust or love someone again. One day, while scrolling through Reddit in an attempt to distract myself, I came across a post on r/relationships. It was from a girl named Sarah, who was struggling with feelings of loneliness after a recent breakup. She wrote about how hard it was to let go of someone she had loved deeply, and how, in the process, she had lost her sense of identity. Her words hit me hard. I had felt that same way not long ago. It was as if she had taken the words right out of my own heart. Without really thinking about it, I commented. I told her that I understood what she was going through and that it was okay to feel lost. I shared how I had gone through something similar and that with time, things did get better. I wasn't expecting anything from it, just a small act of kindness to let someone know they weren't alone. To my surprise, Sarah replied. Her response was short but heartfelt. Thank you for saying that. I needed to hear it. We continued talking in the comments, and over the next few days, we exchanged messages. It wasn't anything intense, just two people offering each other some comfort in a difficult time. But something about her words felt different. There was a kindness in her that I hadn't experienced in a while. We started talking more frequently, and it felt easy, natural, like we had known each other for much longer than we had. We began talking about everything, our childhoods, our favorite books, the movies that made us laugh and cry. I learned that Sarah loved photography and had a passion for art, while I spent my free time writing short stories. We exchanged funny memes and long messages, laughing about life's little absurdities. It wasn't romantic at first, it was just friendship. But with every conversation, I found myself thinking about her more and more. I realized that I was starting to look forward to our chats, even if they were just about nothing at all. After a few weeks of talking, we decided to exchange phone numbers. It was a big step for me, as I wasn't sure if I was ready to get close to someone again. But there was something about Sarah that felt different. I could tell she was genuine, and our conversations were the highlight of my day. We started talking on the phone every night, sometimes for hours. We talked about everything. Our hopes, our fears, and the kind of person we wanted to be in a relationship. It wasn't long before I realized that I had feelings for her. I had never expected this to happen. I had never imagined that I could fall for someone I had met through Reddit, someone I had never even met in person. But the more we talked, the more I realized how much I liked her. She was kind, funny, and had a way of making me feel understood in a way that no one else ever had. I knew it was risky. We had never met face to face, and the idea of starting a relationship with someone I only knew online seemed crazy. But I couldn't ignore what I was feeling. So after weeks of talking, I finally told her how I felt. I told her that I liked her, not just as a friend, but in a way that went deeper than that. I was nervous, unsure of how she would respond. Her response was immediate. I feel the same way. I could hardly believe it. I was overjoyed, but also a little scared. We both agreed that we wanted to meet in person, but we also knew that it was a big step. After all, we had spent months getting to know each other online, but meeting in person could change everything. We decided to meet halfway between our cities, in a small town that neither of us had ever visited before. The day of our meeting, I was a bundle of nerves. What if the chemistry didn't translate in person? What if we didn't feel the same way when we saw each other face to face? But when I walked into the cafe and saw Sarah sitting there, waiting for me, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. She stood up to greet me, and the moment our eyes met, it was as if everything clicked into place. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation, just an overwhelming sense of familiarity, like I had known her my whole life. We hugged, and I couldn't stop smiling. From that moment on, I knew that I had made the right decision. We spent the entire day together, exploring the town, talking about everything and nothing, and getting to know each other even more. It was perfect. There was no pressure, no expectations, just two people who had connected on a deep level, now finally getting to experience that connection in person. By the end of the day, I knew that I was falling for her. We continued to see each other, and the more time we spent together, the stronger our bond grew. We laughed about how unlikely it was that we had met on Reddit, but somehow it felt like fate. We had both been through difficult times, and in a way, our shared experiences had brought us closer. It felt like we had been building something beautiful from the start, even before we had met. Fast forward to today. It's been a year since that first comment on Reddit. Sarah and I have been living together for 6 months, and every day still feels like a dream. We have our challenges, like any couple, but I can honestly say that I've never been happier. We've traveled together, met each other's families, and started building a future we both want. I never could have imagined that my soulmate would be someone I met through a Reddit post. But here we are. Looking back, I can't help but feel grateful for that one moment when I decided to leave a comment. It was small, almost insignificant at the time, but it changed everything. Sometimes love comes from the most unexpected places, and it's a reminder that we should never give up on the possibility of it, no matter how unlikely it may seem. To anyone reading this, I want to say, don't give up on love. It might show up when you least expect it, and sometimes all it takes is one comment to change your life. This story reflects how love can blossom unexpectedly, from simple online interactions to a deep, meaningful relationship. It's a reminder that sometimes love finds us in the most surprising ways.